Welcome, my name is Janet Rothwell, and I have been researching the lives of child lacemakers working in the Buckinghamshire handmade bobbin lace industry in the mid to late 19th century. This period was too early for any oral recordings to be made, and anyway, children in Victorian times would be seen, not heard. However, we do have one invaluable written source of information, and this was the testimonies collected by the government's Children's Employment Commission of 1862. I have used some excerpts from these commission's reports to create my own oral histories to bring to life the words of the children working in this cottage industry. The children were working in workshops, not schools, and they were workers, not scholars. The Commission's reports provide a summary of the working conditions of child lace makers, and here we have the Commissioner, Mr. White, reporting on some of the findings that he found in those reports.
The places of work, whether lace schools or private houses, are generally the living rooms of small cottages, with the fire alcoves being stopped up to prevent draughts, sometimes even in winter, the animal heat of the inmates being thought sufficient. No ventilation beyond the door and window, often not opened. The crowding of these rooms and the foulness of the air are sometimes extreme. It might therefore be anticipated that they suffer considerably in health from the closeness of confinement and bad air, as well as the scantiness of light being injurious to their eyesight.
Next we hear from Mr. Thomas Gilbert, aged 37, who was one of the most prominent lace manufacturers in the area. He had workers in southern Buckinghamshire and an adjoining strip of Oxfordshire. In total, he had about 3,000 persons working for him. His shop was in High Wycombe on the High Street and was probably in the white building on the left-hand side of this photograph.
The earnings of children are a great inducement to parents to put them to lace as soon as they can contribute anything to support of the family, commonly about 6 years old. Till the elder children reach this age, a family is only expense. But a mother, with some of her little girls at lace, may make nearly as much as the father. The number of lace schools, however, is now much diminished, and in the villages which I visit in my rounds, a large number of British and national schools are now being started.
Next we have Mrs. Anna Allen, a former lace maker and lace dealer aged 37, who has left the industry due to the declining fortunes. She now helps her husband in his shoe warehouse and clothing business in Queen Square, Wycombe.
Lacemakers can generally read well, though they have not much time to learn writing. Lacemakers are usually good reckoners from their habit of counting their pins, which they do to see how much work they can do in an hour, or who can work the fastest. They reckon by the number of pins in a head of lace, i.e. in a length forming a complete pattern, after which the pattern is repeated in a fresh head. They are set so much to do in an hour, and each hour the mistress calls round to find out whether they are behind, and by how much. A quick girl of 13, in some patterns, can stick up 600 pins in an hour. Now that the little learners can earn so very little by lace, parents spare their children more to stay at national schools till 8 or 9 years of age.
The lace schools run by lacemakers were declining by the middle of the century, as more mainstream schools were established throughout the Chiltern villages. This meant that the earnings of lacemakers and lace school mistresses were falling. Mrs. Sanders was a lace school mistress, aged 73, who had run a lace school in this cottage on a street in Princess Risborough for the last 45 years.
Mrs. Sanders has had 20 girls at one time, has now only 5, the youngest aged 6, the 2 eldest about 12 or 13, and gets only 2 pence a week each, instead of 3 pence or 4 pence as formerly. At 5 years old, she could not teach them as she should. 6 is the best age, you can beat it into them better then. Her hours are from 8 o'clock until 5, when so long without candles, with dinner hour. Her girls can generally read quite comfortable. Believes that reading is taught at most other lace schools.
Finally, we hear from Fanny Sims, aged 12, and Sophia Benning, aged 11, both pupils at Mrs. Sanders' Lace School in Princess Risborough. The British school talked about was a non-denominational school set up for affordable general education for the poorer classes. Parents still had to pay to send their children to the British schools.
Annie takes her lace to a shop and has to take out all the price and things. If any money is given, which she very seldom gets, 1 penny in the 1 shilling is taken off for discount. Pays 1 penny for a skein of silk, whether taken out of her lace or whether she pays in money.
Sophia has been here 4 to 5 years, comes at 8 in the morning and leaves at dark in winter and 5 in summer, does not make lace out at home afterwards. Mother teaches her to write then, and has done so ever since Witness left the British school to come here. At the British school, paid 2 pence a week, and learned to read, write and sew. Seldom misses reading here.
In conclusion, lace making had been one of the major craft industries in the area, but it is clear it was already in decline by the mid-19th century. However, it was the Education Act of 1870 that sealed its demise, as children had to spend so much time in mainstream education that they no longer had the long hours necessary to learn the skills to make the lace.